Can't hear you. Something wrong with our song. Still. Hmm. Curious. Hello. Can you hear me? I don't think I mute myself. Did you mute yourself?
Okay. How
Okay.
about now?
Perfect. Okay. I was
Wow.
surprised the computer stopped working.
My
Just
StreamYard is giving me fits. The heck, StreamYard?
playing
Uh,
tricks on
I'm going to leave and come right back.
Okay.
No, I'm not. No, no, it wants to make a fuss about that too. I'm going to try it.
Now at least I can hear you. So let's see. Oh,
Hi there.
yeah. I can hear
Okay,
you.
that countdown video with the 30 seconds
Yeah.
being a pain in my ass, and I'm going to stop using that because that has crashed the opening on the last two streams. So I'm going to do something completely different. We're going to figure out some other kind of thing. Hi there, Fanny. Now that we're 2.5 minutes in and we're done with like silly StreamYard technical nonsense. StreamYard, don't do that to me. That's not funny.
I'm fine with you cutting the countdown, the 30 seconds countdown, because it's kind of like it raises the tension, or for some
Mhm.
reason. I guess it's just the countdown thing.
It's a countdown thing. I find there to be a big advantage in having a 30-second countdown in that there is a great delay between the request for the thing starting and the actual follow through. So I start a 30-second countdown and I start with 23 or 17 or 12 on the actual. It's significant. Anyway, but hello, my buddy Phil. It's a significant deal. So I'm going to rework that because no, not StreamYard. Otherwise, I'm a fan of StreamYard. I wish they'd stop spamming me quite so hard with their ads, but oh well.
It works
Welcome,
well. Yeah.
Fanny.
I
Yeah,
never.
otherwise it works well, but I have to work around that problem. Hello, Fanny. Tell us about yourself. Who is Fanny Anzai?
Well, second time here, I guess, because
Oh
we
no, you've been on my channel 3 or 4 times before last week or 2 weeks ago.
recently, I mean,
Yeah, recently.
just like
This is
we
the second
started
time
this new
recently. I
series of
think this is going to be a series.
I,
You have a whole and
I have a list, yeah.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want you to help me exploring a list of
Hey,
street epistemology claims, let's
mhm.
say in the epistemological sense and
Yeah.
methods. So we set a list of topics. I'm Fanny Anzai. I have a podcast slash YouTube about a bunch of things related to myself,
Mm-hmm.
personally, professionally, and mostly, I would say, politically and culturally speaking. Uh, Usually, people, authors of books that I've read and I like and I would like to discuss and have
Mm-hmm.
more people to reach, that those knowledges and those conversations. And I think what brings us together here is that we like to talk about having impossible conversations and talking about
Yeah.
specific hot topics, which
Yeah.
seem a little delicate sometimes to treat with people that we just met or even
Mhm.
with family or friends. Many people just want to talk about how the weather is today and things we've done last week, and we want to go a little bit more into this hot potato topics
Yeah.
and explore, try to find if there is true some truth in
Yep.
any
We
those
might.
positions and probably explore both sides. Today, I suggested you to do a little bit of libertarian claim, which
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
curious about exploring more of libertarianism, and I'm excited for it because I'm all for
Wonderful.
freedom.
Okay, so the libertarian claim, it's probably not the only one. It's an important one, apparently, is that rights are inherent in people and not a given by government's thing. Is that core to the libertarian ideology, or is libertarianism an ideology? Tell me about this relationship to libertarianism.
Well, my relationship with libertarianism is quite recent, I would say. It's a young, like a love now, I would say,
Mm.
a passion that I have got in the last years talking about freedom and now against like the last couple years I have interviewed and talking to people about the cancel culture, a new modern type of censorship which is being passed through judgment online, not just in the normal daily
Hmm.
lives, but even going the level of influencing people's behaviors, their freedom of expressing their opinions, the freedom of speech, uh, with this fear of consequence that don't seem to be proportionate
Sure.
to the
Secularism.
yeah. And I think the importance of like I at least got with more into libertarianism after talking to Raka Ali and him talking a lot about not libertarianism specific but objectivism with Ayn Rand. So I went through it.
Objectivism
Yes.
by
So
Ayn Rand.
yes. So
Define terms. Tell what is objectivism from the perspective of Ayn Rand.
well, I would say that objectivism is to be able to find an objective point, a common sense in between individuals using logic and reason. And we expect, let's say, that all people with a functioning brain could find those uh, common evidence or facts that would lead us to decide in between, for example, which I would say, which is the most important principles of the objectivism, is the individual rights, which, but then together with the libertarianism so
Okay.
much. So uh, from Ayn Rand, I jumped into a lot of new podcasters that are influencers nowadays, not just in libertarianism, but culture, let's say, in general.
Okay.
And so Tom Woods and Michael Malice, and I end up becoming, let's say, a libertarian. Politically
Hmm.
speaking, I didn't notice that transition throughout years, but when I start back talking about politics, kind of first talking about politics, talking to so many people about cancel culture and culture in general, end
Hmm.
up falling into politics, and I found myself quite distant from what I've seen myself in the past, which I was much more of a leftist
Okay.
when in my teenage hood. And now I would say that I have crossed the line to the right side, so I'm
Hmm.
a center libertarian, kind of a little bit on the right, because I'm very much for the freedom, which Ayn Rand would define the one principle or one needed thing in our lives to be able to find happiness. The only way an individual can be happy is if he's free to do his own choices, take his own risks, and make his own decisions about his life.
Okay.
So, in that sense, uh, the government was, let's say, politically speaking, created for the purpose of which we would believe to defend the smallest minority, which is the individual,
Hmm.
but we see operating in a much more collectivist way that in fact will crush any individual and will
Hmm.
not will crush any minority dissent is
Yeah.
what we're experiencing
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's important to bring this conversation here because seems to be a
Yeah,
bunch of
yeah.
doing.
The question of crushing minority dissent actually can crush majority dissent, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Uh, let me peel back the definition. Objectivism is the attempt to asymptotically approach objective truth by the comparisons of multiple logical thinking minds working in a team, something like that.
Yeah.
So the goal is to find truth through discussion of intelligent people, something like that.
Well, not only it would be more by speaking of the individual rights being inherited, would be any individual
Mm,
can realize very early in life and in simple interpersonal interactions that there is a better way to behave in society and towards other people,
hmm
and that is all in favor, of course it's a selfish behavior in favor of the a greater good, which is if everybody does their best, the the common will be, the public would be much better.
Okay.
uh, and
So
in this,
early on, we learn that there are better than the simple selfish behaviors. If we take the complex selfish behaviors that include societies and other people's interests, we end up synergistically winning, getting an advantage above the individual selfish. Is that what I hear?
well, I think I maybe have jumped a little bit of the
Maybe.
inherent rights, because then we went
Right.
to the
We haven't got to
political
inherent
rights.
rights yet. We're still
let's say
we're
let's
establishing that.
say that the objectivism of these inherent rights is you go out as, let's say, a child on
Okay.
the kindergarten or daycare, and your first interactions will be to notice that there is a very subtle limit of rights and respect of these your rights and other people's rights, that bubble of rights, which is you want to have your individual rights as your body and your properties
Sure.
protected, or not protected, but you don't
Honored.
want to go through experience violence
Sure.
or any type of coercion.
Yeah, you want your
and,
boundaries honored and defended.
and that thing you require to behave in a certain way. So
Uh-huh.
it's selfish in the end to be your best of not really uh, being bad, let's say, or
Yeah.
try to take others people's rights or try to infringe in their bodies and their
Right.
property for the same reason you don't want them to do the same to you.
The
And
price of
that's why I
teamwork
mean
is
it's
playing
very
within the game.
subtle and very sensitive, like mutualistic respect. And
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a give and take initially. If before we are dealing with kindergarten, we kind of have the parents, we have the child, and the child kind of gets to do anything they want, and there's no real consequences. And then we get into a school situation where you have peers and they're pushing against each other, and the consequences of a bad action might be the loss of somebody else's options. And then they might push back, and then they might escalate, and then there's all of these things. But yeah, I think the price of teamwork is playing by the rules of the game, or you just changing to a different game.
yeah, and this is not instinctive. This is a rational decision,
This is
position
a
in the
thought
end.
process. That's
And
fine.
that's why
Yeah.
I'm saying that that is objective, because anybody can realize that, well, probably the best way to live is just don't do to other people what you don't want others to do to yourself, like. So I
Okay.
think that is pretty much the base of using objectivism as the base of principles, of moral principles, and protection of the individual rights as inherent and not given by the governments. Now, to defend this claim specific, I think the best would be the Anatomy of State, which I told you I gave a little review this morning just on the
Uh-huh.
Audible. Uh, and I think he puts well on the sense that if you actually believe that the rights are given by the governments, and or
Mhm.
that we are giving our rights to the government to do whatever with us, when it comes to take our taxes, or impose us fees and
Mhm.
other things, taxations, uh, with the threat of the violence or jailhouse in the end is the
Mhm.
bayonet or the or the jailhouse. It's a type of coercion that seems to be not noticed by so many people still today,
Hmm.
but it's still
Okay. You think
they
people don't
think
notice that
like
they're being coerced into paying taxes?
they apparently I see a lot of people defending the government coercion as, oh no, this is a it's a take and give situation.
Oh,
We
okay.
are in
They're
a
wanting to disqualify the term coercion is what I'm hearing. Yeah, do you think they don't notice, or do you think they simply don't see it in those terms?
it might be underlined by the fact that most of people just follow and don't think of the fear that they have, or don't notice the other productions of controlling by fear that the government it's throwing out there all the time.
Okay.
The fear of just a civil war or a foreigner threat, like an enemy that we need, that we could go to war, or the inside war that could come anytime. So there's always those methods of control the
Sure.
government used to
Fear is a
to,
very effective
to
marketing
say like,
tactic.
no, I'm the good guy. It's not that I'm breaking our legs and then I give you clutches and say like, you're welcome. Because it's pretty much what they do. But the idea of the if we actually volunteered for all those things as even like death penalty, then you would not be being killed by the government, which is what happens. They want to disguise as we are murderers, and actually these people just commit suicide
Well,
because
we're
they
all
agree
murderers?
with,
I misunderstood.
yeah, they want to disguise that as this responsibility is diluted to all of us, so we all become
Oh,
murderers in that
oh, I see.
situation when we kill someone, when the government kills someone, or
Okay.
when the person, or would be that the person itself gave it right away as committing suicide. So uh, I think one of the extreme examples, but it's written on the books anyways, is that if you really believe the government give the rights to people, so the Nazi Germany didn't really kill the Jews, they commit suicide, was a volunteer. And
That's just playing with
even
words.
though
Yeah,
it
I'm
was
so turned off to that bullshit. That
a 70-30%,
yeah.
or even if it was the majority choosing to do that, it still does not take the fact that it is murder and it should not be justified.
Yeah, yeah, just redefining it to a different word, that's one of the arguments I hate, is just saying, "Oh, it's not that, it's this other thing for nuanced reasons." It doesn't disqualify the violence. It doesn't feel any different. It doesn't look any different. Now you're just eh, equivocating because you don't like a term. Anyway, sorry, I'm gone
Yeah,
way
no, no, it's just fun. It's like
not
I
on you,
it's
on your steel man. I'm being annoyed with your steel man.
no, yeah, I'm just saying that that is what would be what if we think that the government really has the right to give rights or take
Mhm.
them away.
Uh-huh.
The way that we government is the one that gives you the right to go to the public roads and parks and go to the public area that
Okay.
they own. Huh?
Well,
So if now they just like, oh, you don't have the right to do that because you didn't take the vaccine or you don't have the mask, so you're not allowed to go to those areas or to go to other areas and or to travel. So that would be the idea of government give rights to people.
mhm.
They would be able to withdraw those rights.
So over here, I want to just have an imaginary set of all the rights you think people inherently have.
Okay.
So just imagine this list, and we'll think about how to populate that later. And then over here, I have a list of the rights that you have a Canadian government, I have a U.S. government, so it's a different list. The rights that our governments provide for us. How many rights? What's the proportion? Is this a much
Yeah,
smaller list than
that
the
is, I
actual
think
list?
I think the list is very small, and what they do is they give services and they call them rights, and that's a good slippery slope for the people that like to get
Okay, so they're
benefit from.
redefining what a right is as far as you're concerned.
No, I think the right of your body, your individual rights and your property is,
Bodily autonomy, property. Okay.
that's all the things that are rights, inherent rights. Now, when we come to healthcare, which is a big discussion, it's like, oh, but
Mhm.
you have the right to, for me it's like you have the right to not suffer any violence from external force or coercion,
Mhm.
because you have your life, and that is one big right that the individual has. But it's not, like I said, it's not given by the government, and it's not that there is any rights that we have that actually the government has the responsibility to give to
Right.
us.
So there's a difference between interfering with somebody's life and supporting somebody's life. Yes?
Yeah, yeah, let's say like that. This
I want to be clear with words. Is there a word that they want, maybe your Canadian government wants to call a right of healthcare or something? That you would do you have a different word other than right for that? You said uh
service.
oh, service. Okay.
Yeah,
So they provide a service and they call it a right.
yeah,
They provide policing, for example. That's a service.
yeah.
And it's sort of
Here's your
connected to the right of protecting your bodily autonomy, and maybe to some degree it is. So let's see. You said bodily autonomy, property rights. Um,
then they will create services to make sure they
mhm,
would if, protect those rights from external forces. Let's say
okay,
I need an army because we could have foreigner invaders, so I need to make I don't know, I need to police people inside.
sure.
So I need police, I need army to protect my borders, let's say, because then it comes to the, we didn't reach that yet, but the private and public
Hmm.
sectors and basics of acquiring their, whatever they call their establishments or whatever,
I don't
uh,
know what the idea
their
is.
gain.
Oh,
How the because that is another part, that is the economic part of the political view of government, would be what the government, what is the government things, so the
sure.
government things and gain, when it comes to what are the forms of gain wealth for the individual, you need to work, and you're going to collect from your work.
So the government defines how
But
people may earn wealth.
no, let's say that is the way that we find to, as individuals, to collect, to collect wealth.
Okay, so we figure out ways in which
we,
to
we
generate
we
wealth.
have this way of
Collect.
production,
Okay,
and the government has the collective way. The government does not produce anything. The government comes and takes things from the people who are producing. It starts with that part of
okay.
the we call the theft. They steal from the people, but they say that it's voluntary. We know
Can I
how
have a separate
everything started back there when there was not even government, huh? It
can I
was like,
have a
oh, you
separate
guys
thing,
are here.
a separate word to define theft versus the in this case, there's a difference between theft that is surprise, I snuck up on you, stuck a gun in your ribs, or broke down your back door and something, versus here is a contract that you cannot opt out of unless you leave the country and go live in another country, that you are obligated to these things.
Well, now I would like have to cite like older philosophers that actually talk about how it's like, okay, so you just faded because you were born here, and then your parents or grandparents or who were
Sure.
old generation made this agreement or signed those contracts, and you automatically just born here and well have to follow that.
Yeah, I had no choice in becoming a US citizen. I was born here. Before I knew what it was, I was one. And I do have the choice to opt out. I do have the choice to leave the country, things like that. But otherwise, I'm stuck with it until I actively opt out into a different situation, right?
it seems to be the only way.
Yeah. Not that I'm saying I'm stuck
Yeah,
with citizenship. I'm pretty happy with it.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
still,
yeah. Kind of the problem, part of the problem is that when we don't have that option to even leave, as
right.
we
I don't
experience
have the
the
option to leave.
dissents that
Russians
you're
don't
not
have the
even
option to
allowed
leave.
to,
A lot of them.
you
Yeah.
know, all the dissents that I don't agree, I want to leave. And so many places still today, we can't not just leave. They were like, oh no, you didn't,
Yeah.
fill up all the requirements to actually be accepted to leave, to give the
Instead of
right
theft,
to leave.
may I offer slavery, enslavement.
It's a good way to put to what
Yeah,
you.
it's importantly different, especially in terms of enforcement, detection, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm not trying to put the words in your mouth, but
No,
for
no, no.
myself,
It's a good one.
I want to
Because,
have a different word than theft because theft to me has a bunch of connotations that
well,
don't apply.
it's just a different relationship, like you said. Everybody's just so into the automatic way of living through this way and being just
Sure.
one more to do this, and because everybody does, let's all do it. But
Yeah,
it
most people
didn't
accept the
start
status
with
quo
the
of taxation
but
and
all this relationship start with the threat of like, you need my protection,
yep,
or I'm gonna break your stuff down
yep,
too. Not just the invaders and the foreigners or the enemies inside. I'm the one that will destroy your business. It was always like that. So the coming collecting taxes passed in the feudalism even today is the same idea. If you
yeah.
don't give
I'm
me
not
that
saying that
part of your stuff, I will come here and I will throw you in jail and I will destroy your life.
Yep.
That is
I'm not
the
saying that this kind of slavery is better or worse than theft. It's
yeah.
just so very different because it is contractual and expected, and you can comply completely. You can this. It's well set out. There's very few surprises. So
It's
that's different than
it's
theft to me.
it's problematic because they have all the methods already. Like I said, the
Yeah,
system is well built to
totally rigged.
create this hostage situation
Hmm.
with a little touch of Stockholm syndrome. You
Sure.
know that you're happy and you like it. So
Quick, give me a
we
flag
feel
pin.
that is necessary. Yeah, so uh well, I kind of lost a little bit because it's a
Yeah,
lot.
sorry, I went into this into the
Yeah,
things. We were still trying to, for my help, I
yeah.
wanna understand the list of these rights, and
Oh
then
yeah.
how the government reacts in this thing, and how they trade this partial slavery that they do for us.
Well,
Uh,
I think we only realized the entire uh, dynamics,
mhm,
and the way that operates government operates by
mhm,
now. We are tiptoeing in libertarianism still,
mhm,
and as being more for freedom than for a stronger government that will protect me against all these threats. Like we are in that moment of that shifting of the culture, I think.
okay,
We all having like our eyes more open. I feel myself that in the past I always thought politics is, I still think it's pretty much BS when it comes to the main two parties that exist even in Brazil. You have 30 parties, but there are two that are the main, and the main
sure.
options is
The
like
first and the second one, yeah.
choose the smallest evil, something like
And
that.
then we have a third, which is the coalition of the next 15.
Or you have, for example, here you would have the new, which are libertarians, but the idea of the libertarianism, it's something that is pretty much the enemy of the government. So no government itself,
Okay,
structure, wants to be governed by libertarians that will reduce the government, that will
okay,
make it as smallest as possible. Because we see the state as a malevolent state, which, since to judge its need, creates more demand for itself. You will employ
yeah,
and create more public employers that will defend whatever evil government that they have there, which is filling up their pockets. It will designate experts that will cause fear into people and say, like, you guys really need the government to take care of your health. And those are parts of this very well built structure that we're talking about, giving services,
Sure.
giving privileges, and trying to disguise as it's for a greater good or it's for the better of all. But we'll sacrifice an individual for the collective, which
Okay.
might not be the main goal in the end.
Could you describe the minimum viable product of the libertarian ideal government? What is that minimum government that would satisfy your libertarian ideals?
Well, I would like to see a government that has much less employees in the public service itself. So I think we could reduce the number of public servers in pretty much all this
Okay. What
public
jobs would you like
services.
them to
And we
stop
still
doing?
have maybe a more meritocratic and less unionized to give a better performance and efficiency. And I've seen that happening in Brazil. So would
Oh,
be
I hear two directions.
reducing taxes and maybe making the government a real voluntary uh, relationship of I recognize as a libertarian, as a citizenship, as a citizen, as I recognize the needs of we have roads, we have to maintain public parks and services, and there's a lot going on there. But I would love to see in Brazil or in United States, whoever reaches there
Mhm.
first, a possible opt out of services and taxations and be more voluntary on what you use and what you really want to give.
If I
And
do that, am I allowed on public roads?
independent of your contribution, yes.
Sorry, I'm allowed on
Yes.
public roads
Yes,
independent
would
of
it
my
be
public contribution.
independent of you contributing or not? Would be a completely voluntary taxation system.
How do
To
we pay for the roads?
people will give taxes, but voluntarily and not forced. It works like charity, and we can tell that charity works quite well.
Okay, I might put a bookmark in that later. Um, so you were talking about reducing the jobs in the government, reducing the number of
Part
people
of
that are
reducing the
working.
costs,
What?
but for
Sure.
the
And
sake
you
of
also talked about the union thing, but you said reducing their jobs. What tasks, what roles that they are currently doing would you like them to stop doing?
well, I think all the agencies that say that is security or that is government protected in some ways have apparently securities in airports or extra security against terrorism never really impeded or stopped, or it's just a open tap of money, let's say.
Okay, so
uh,
the security
FBI,
theater in the airports.
or yeah,
Okay,
FBI
FBI.
probably. Yeah,
You want
in
to
the,
get
in
rid
the
of the
case of
FBI?
United States, in the case of United States. But yeah, in some sense,
So does this
the
mean the
police,
Justice Department
police,
in general, or
let's say, or the
specifically the
police, the
FBI?
police government.
I'm sorry, I stepped on you. Could you
Sorry,
say it again, please?
all the police that police government, and that could be corrupt and highly manipulated.
The internal affairs part of the Justice Department, is that what I'm hearing?
The fact that the government created, like originally created the powers to be completely separated so they would not have the conflict of interest to get together and work towards one same goal, or overlook corruption. Yes, I would like to.
Okay, are they stopping doing their job, or are they just changing the rules under which they do their job?
If we look at their work, and it seems to have much more of creation of conspiracy theories than or fueling somehow types of like trying to find this whatever hidden enemy
Mm-hmm.
they are trying to
Okay.
defeat, I would say.
So far, I'm hearing the security people in the airport, some of the FBI or all of them, and something about like the internal affairs part of the Justice Department. Was there
Correct.
anything else? Any
Sorry.
other tasks that you'd like
Well, I
to
think
stop having government spend workers on?
in Brazil, I would say that we have a health system, a unique health system that is considered by their own rules universal, and it end up like what I told you. It's like it became as like no, this is a basic service. Is like you guys pay taxes, so I will give you the roads. I'll give
Hmm.
you the lights, electricity. I'll give
Hmm.
you the water, the treatment of water, and I'll give you police, right?
Okay.
And then um, and I will give you health because I need to keep you alive. That is one of the things, and I
Sure.
think that is not part of the right. The right for me is if anybody attempt against your life, the government, and that's why the police
Hmm.
would not need anybody to claim, "Hey, I found a dead body. Who will kill?" It's a public uh, a service to like prosecute or find out, which they don't most of the times find, but who killed this person and to prosecute, punish because someone infringed another person's rights. So those are public lawsuits that don't even need anybody to an individual to claim those type of things. uh, for me is that would be the main reason of the government, and not to like, oh no, I need to protect your life from any threat. So when it comes to health service, like of a public health service,
Hmm.
I think the least, for example, in Brazil could be much smaller. What they do is because people keep claiming like this is you know a basic right to have, I don't know, a hysterectomy, to have a vasectomy, or to change gender, or to have an abortion. No, an abortion is not it's not something that you can
We're gonna
do.
hit we're gonna hit all the hot buttons on the way around.
But that those I then don't think, because then, for example, becomes medicine. Medicine is it's a basic right. It's a individual universal basic right, and so everybody will try to claim and put more into the list. So it becomes something that's unpayable, independent how much the government will steal from you. And I
Okay,
saw
so
people commenting here.
if you allow people to add on rights, you can get to an unsustainable level. Okay.
Yeah, so I think the list
If we
has
have
to be
services, we can
reduced.
negotiate whether or not we're going to provide them at any given time.
Well, I think the list has to be reduced for something that we can definitely pay.
Hmm.
And I do think people voluntarily do a lot of things, because I saw people here, would never have roads if you voluntarily have. No, that's how we end up here, because we are being, let's say, most of us believe that this is voluntary, that we are doing that for the best of all, making roads and doing things. And if we didn't have the government, that's the point, we would get together and do it at charity, because charity works well. And guess
Okay.
what? If we didn't do it in this way, we would find other ways, because if you put in the comparison of public and private service, the private beat the public all the fucking time. Sorry, all the time.
I don't think YouTube minds that after 45 seconds. I think you can say fuck.
Anyways, it comes out naturally. It might have been out other times that I didn't notice. I say
I
that
don't
all the
care.
time. Um,
Yeah. Oh, let's see. All right. So, on the question of bodily autonomy and property rights, imagine this is a crazy notion. Just go with me. Putin gets an itch and comes over the pole and is invading Canada from the north for whatever fucking stupid reason
okay,
Putin has in his head.
okay, we
Whatever.
could
But there's
thought
suddenly
experiment here.
you've got a thought experiment. You've got an invader to the north. who pays, and should the government be allowed to conscript people into the defense?
Well, I'm completely against of all of that. The idea of I defend the idea of the nations have their sovereignty and
Mhm.
defend their borders, and I think again, those services and in those type of situations should always be voluntary. The fact that we
Right.
have this coercion of the government, because the problem with the government when it comes to talk about the state being malevolent is because they have the monopoly of the fear, the monopoly of the coercion, and
Hmm.
that's how they end up getting us to do all those things for them, even to go to war and die for you know whatever nation. Some people are coming out of Canada right now and going to Russia Ukraine war and dying there voluntarily. See, people do that. I don't think we should be forced. Like I said, some people will find purpose on doing something like that, to sacrifice themselves for the government, for other governments, for other things.
Hmm.
My entire point, like, I guess I'm not like the best of like maybe talk about
Hmm.
the principles of libertarianism as a philosopher, or pointing out the philosophy so much, because it is all based in the one simple sense of I think freedom is the ultimate way of finding
Hmm.
happiness, and each individual should have that one right,
Hmm.
defended by the government, not taken by it.
Did I capture your claim right? All government funding should be provided voluntarily?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be a good.
Imagine that this is going to be crazy perfect world. This thing goes viral and hits 8 billion people, even the people who don't have the internet. Everybody thinks Fanny is right, and everybody, including the governments, starts to change their policies to where all funding for all governments is voluntary. What changes in the world?
I think people would be happier to voluntarily give to the government more than to be forced.
Okay. So
And then
people would
they
be
could
happier when they
choose,
do give money.
they probably would be able to choose. For example, it's like being in Brazil,
Hmm.
being raised in Brazil, and it's a common knowledge. People are paying for things they are not using. They are happy for being able to provide to other people that could not pay, let's say.
Hmm.
Okay, that is probably the majority of the feeling voluntarily given to the
Okay.
government.
Lots
Okay,
of charity.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think if the government tomorrow said, like, look, you don't need to give to me, but I do have those programs, and if you
Hmm.
want, you can still give me that or even more. I bet some people would even give you more. You say, like, no, I'm totally for that cause. I want the poor kids to have education. Of course I do. I want them
Okay.
to have food. I want people to have, let's say, the basic needs, to have a little bit of leisure. So why not a nice park?
Hmm.
We all enjoy it. And I don't know, I don't think people are that greedy to really not give if they have. I think we are going through this stealing, government stealing from us, make us poor, in a sense that we just cannot give, even if you want.
Okay.
you know
So what would happen to war in that utopia?
I would like to see that, and I would think that would not even exist. And that is part of the
War
libertarian
war would cease.
non-aggression principle.
Okay. So war shuts off. And
Probably,
then and then
probably people would
10
not
years.
feel uh, coerced to fight or
Okay.
convinced to fight for what borders. We're just neighbors.
Okay. So 10 years later, the grandson of the grandsons of Putin and Kim Jong somebody come together and become a bad actor in that situation and forcefully create a war in which they take over a space, whatever that space is, what happens then?
That is something I struggle every day to think if we should go free Iran, Afghanistan, or
Mhm,
but we've tried that. People don't seem to like to be free by other people. People need to want to be free, I guess,
mhm.
would be the answer, because I don't actually know. Like that's what I'm like. I'm trying to hypothesize here. If
Yeah.
we see the experience of United States going to liberate Middle East and give people more rights, and I was just actually chatting with someone from UK yesterday, um, from the Lotus Eaters podcast, and Callum, which is the secretary of Carl Benjamin, and we talk about culture and politics, and he went to the Taliban Afghanistan now.
Mhm,
And I was like, wow, you're so courageous to be there and to go there. And it's scary to see how the misery, in a place where theocratic authoritarian governments will
mhm,
lead. And he was like, oh, but when the United States, US was there, and they did a poll in between women and asked who would not want to use the hijab or not be part of the Islam,
mhm.
and was a majority answered that they were fine with their religion. So I was like, well, I'm not sure about
Ooh, they had a referendum? Mm.
that they made a poll, like going to houses and talking to women about their culture, their religion, their condition of being oppressed, and that they don't feel oppressed and they feel like they chose that. And I was like, I'm not sure about the honesty before a poll that could be, maybe they don't feel safe to say the truth. Maybe they want fuck this shit, but they're gonna be
You're
killed
you're
immediately after
polling
the poll.
people on whether they are willing to socially, comply in a high control society.
Or I told him it could be the simplest explanation, like governments and rulers are just representing the majority of people. So I don't know, maybe they are just a bunch of crazy authoritarian people, and that they're choosing to live under that type of regime. But I tend to not want to think that is a natural way of
Yeah.
living.
Okay, so I wanna get down to confidence here. I have 2 confidence questions. The first one is, if your idea became wildly popular all of a sudden, what what is your prediction that, war would cease within 5 years down to, you know, at least
I,
90%
I'm
drop?
not. I'm not sure. The one thing I feel is that the freedom is um, something much more threatened, like constantly threatened. That we need to be fighting for freedom all the time, but fighting on the way of standing against oppressive regimes, against authoritarian regimes. I'm not sure about going out there and liberating the entire world, like I mentioned, as being the police, the world police, and go and free all these horrible places, from
Okay.
their evil leaders. I guess that doesn't work, because if you go there, down their government, maybe other authoritarian group would come and take over, as we've seen this throughout history there in Middle East. They don't seem to go towards the democratic way, or the democratic way is still pointing out towards a
Have
type
you
of
seen Iran the last few weeks? Anyway, sorry.
sorry.
Have you heard the news from Iran in the last few weeks? Ooh. Anyway,
So yes,
there's
that
some
is part
shift
of the
going
things.
on. The
That is,
shift has hit the fan.
well, yeah. Now a lot of people are mobilized because of what happened there, but
Yeah.
for me, it's a hard thing, because I'm very uh, moved by the entire thing, like to the idea of living in 2022. It's not
Mhm.
living in the future, because depends where you're born. It's not about the time and space anymore. It's just about space right now. You could be living in barbaric times.
Yeah,
No?
yeah. I really think I'm living in the future. I really think that pretty much it's Jetsons, and we all got a few details wrong, like how tall the
I'm
buildings and what
I'm
cars fly.
happy. I feel like we are on we've experienced we have at least experienced the apex of our area, let's say. Maybe we're on
Apex.
the way down.
Separate show. Good bookmark. All right. So the other confidence. Now, so I didn't actually get a confidence
Okay.
about whether you think that war, if
Oh,
everybody adopted it,
I'm not confident. I'm
you're
not
not
confident.
confident in that.
I'm
Well, that was
very dubious of if we would, if we make this, what I imagine, this beautiful place up the hill, let's say, that everybody wants to join and become like us. A
Mhm,
libertarian society that works well, it's functional, it's voluntary, people don't feel coerced in any way, they can
mhm.
be themselves, pray, praise whatever they want, be secular in all the levels and not just
Okay.
religious speaking, like have the bank separate from state, no corporatism, no benefits to big companies, know this game of industries trying to manipulate and get the extra benefits from the government depending on where they're going to install their factories, which is seems to be part of the structure that some people in the end don't want to abolish. When you come to say about
Sure.
unions or about all this
Especially if in the oil
lobbyists,
business in Louisiana or and just list. Did you ever
and
work
then
on the
to
semi
give
shelf?
that equal opportunity to individuals and treat people just equally. That's all,
Yeah.
and stop with the pledging benefits and rights for specific groups. Because we changed. We were like, we have to treat everybody the same. Don't see anything. And then at some point, we're like, no, but we need to do this positive affirmation and do this forcing giving rights to more people or benefits to some groups.
Uh-huh.
That's when I think we lost the battle, the balance, or the
Okay.
reason, the logic. And
So
now,
removing discrimination was good, but affirmative action was a step too far. Is that what I hear?
well, I think any type of discrimination is bad, and people should be judged by their individuality and not
Yeah. Yeah.
by any of these other, inherent things,
Yeah.
features that we don't have any control of.
So last question. What could you learn? Something you don't think is true today that would raise your confidence that switching to a voluntary system would have overall net improvement.
To switch, to give me more confidence.
Yeah, right now you don't have a lot of confidence that it would get rid of war, and that's just one thing. So maybe I'll narrow it to that. What could you learn that would make you more confident that the voluntarism, I'm not sure what you call it,
Yeah.
would lead to a significant reduction in war?
I don't know. I guess if you see some type of separation, and we don't actually see an increase in violence, or for example, let's say in a hypothetical, meaning like the idea of like states in Brazil or United States that want to separate, or Quebec, the
Uh-huh.
Quebecois, the
Yeah,
PQ, they want to separate. So like, go Quebec, separate.
yeah,
I
they would say it
I
in
guess
French.
if the Quebec separates and Canada and Quebec have a you know amicable relationship and don't enter war, I guess would be positive on my side, because I don't think they are going to go to war just because they separate. I tend to not believe that.
Yeah, I
But
think
the
Quebec,
fact the
Quebecois
fact is that
separation would be almost the most peaceful breakdown of a subset that
the
I could
one
imagine.
problem is
It'd be
because
lovely.
we don't live in that type of system that doesn't allow us to actually get out. You see,
Yeah.
the when Tom Woods talk about the nullification in the United States, apparently
Oh, not without war.
political
Yeah.
their political system allows them more political tools to disagree with from the
Yeah.
nation, and to do their things, and in the end, if it's an unconstitutional uh, uh, decree, they would be able to even separate, or like, according to their own political uh, set.
Yeah.
But in what we see most of the times is that we have this, like I said, this hostage situation, that all the
Hmm.
separatist movements that were not successful, still they are the villains unless they succeed, and then they are the heroes, which
Sure.
is kind of interesting to.
Birthing a nation through war is so passe. That's just the easy way to do it. All the examples of where I see in history of a nation being born without having a war that led directly to that as a settlement are situations where there was a large group that collapsed and failed from the inside, and then splinter groups were able to just opt out, and there wasn't resources to try to force them back in. They didn't. The central group couldn't manage a civil war, so dunk. And now we have Estonia and Latvia and Ukraine and the stands and the this is and that's. Um, and then you have situations like Taiwan, where they established a government, and then there's kind of about war, but I'm not sure that there's actually been a big shooting war regarding Taiwan yet. Anyway,
I was again. Is that not the next chapter? Because I guess, like, for me, the
stay
one thing
tuned.
with
Yeah.
Taiwan is that just it's hard to think and understand how it became what it is, with so much pressure and instability, like the instability of the not feel safe. You don't have any safety, you don't have any security to actually create all of that, and then just be taken by the communist government, the Chinese communist government. So I don't know. It's a constant threat that I feel it's even like counterproductive. But they succeed. They uh, in some way, I guess, internationally, politically speaking, pretty much everybody just closed their eyes to their problem. No one to really get involved. But it's it's all part of the problem is when you really have those type of situations that the people are hostage, and they seem to like be oppressed within their area, not being able to even leave that area. It's like, okay, I'm feeling oppressed, I don't like this, I want to get out.
Yep.
Okay, move, go to another country, do like I've done. But and we didn't feel the same here in COVID Canada, because
Mhm.
you could not even go out. No, you don't have the vaccine. You're not allowed to move. You're not allowed to get out of your house. You're not allowed to take a plane. And no,
Mhm.
we're not going to let you cross borders. These types of situations that we are going through now, today, still today, let's say,
Mhm.
just they're releasing because Biden said the pandemic's over. So now they are taking a
Yes,
ride
it's
to
an
Canada.
endemic now.
Well,
The
that means they
pandemic
were
the
going to come.
pandemic graduated.
Whenever the first one is sneeze, then they ban everything again. Oh my gosh. Well, I think the entire problem of like my idea of this super freedom up the hill place where everybody wants to be part of. I think United States is already a little bit like that. That's why so many people are just like crossing the border, go there and find find something better than whatever you came from.
Mhm. Mhm.
But uh, I think there is such a thing as what they do as to be so attractive, and I think it's just something for the future. I think the idea of being uh, for example, I really like this book, the Anarchist Handbook here, and
Mm.
but I don't think I think anarchism as an idea of the ultimate libertarianism is something uh, probably still pretty far from us, speaking of our evolution politically throughout time. So it will be something like for the future. And that's why I said we're like kind of tiptoeing libertarianism, because even for most of us, it's still today something inimaginable. oh, it would not work to have a volunteer government, to have a smaller government, to have giving less rights to people, or like less benefits, because like I said, I don't think those are right. The rights they are there to defend are very little, and they are infringing in many of our rights with this disguise that they are doing the best for all.
Yeah. So I hear you saying that your opponents say, but your goals are impractical.
Well, I fear I fear that a super beautiful place up the hill and free and nice
Mhm.
like that could be a target for not just invaders, not just people that want to be part, but
Sure.
for entrism, like the immigration and overpopulation of other groups that would try to shift the
Hmm.
politics back towards more regressive, more progressive,
Sure.
more um, woke, or whatever. I think the calamity of the United States right now, it's something
I
that I don't know if
Yeah.
it's such a
I think woke is not something a group is calling themselves anymore. I think woke is a term used in a pointing motion.
well.
Anyway.
It's interesting because I think it was more of a term that they create and then they
Yeah.
refuse
There
when,
was initially a creation and then there was a big stepping back
yeah. Still, I
because
guess they don't.
a whole bunch of people were calling themselves woke and made the rest of them look cringy. Did I drop out?
No,
Okay.
you just got like a little cut.
Oh, okay. I was saying that I think some people called themselves woke and then stood out in public and said woke things, and the rest of them went, "Oh, cringe!" And no, we don't want to call ourselves that.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the term. I use it to define an extreme left or authoritarian left.
Authoritarian left. That's cool. Yeah. I'm with you. I don't want to be authoritarian left. I do
Yeah.
want to be a little left. I'm left of center, and I'm really really into. I'm 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 kind of a leftist libertarian, but I don't think that my version of libertarian strongly overlaps with yours.
Well, I think the one thing people, it's some of the new conversation too, because we always been talking about politics as left and right only, as there's only one axis.
Right, right. I don't think
And
so.
in fact,
I
there
think
are
there's
two. So the
at least
political
two.
compass, it's much more complicated than people putting it themselves. So what we still experience is that most of people use like theory instead of hypothesis, for example. But most
Sure.
of people will still use the left and right as, oh, that person is left. It's
Yeah.
just because they are left from what where they
Sure.
position. Sometimes they are left too, but it's just, wow, he's like extreme left. So
Yeah.
okay, now that's why we had to separate and create all these other categories, or start addressing if
Yeah.
you are
Do you like the vertical axis being authoritarian and
libertarian.
individualistic? Yeah. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
going to call it libertarian, which is a messy term because libertarian is two islands in that thing. There's a
exactly.
right libertarian island, which
Yeah, that's why
is
I think
over here, and then we've got a left libertarian island over here, and of course this is my left, right, left with never mind that mirror, wicket, whatever.
yeah, it would be a classic liberalism, but which ultimately right now I guess we dropped the liberals because they became left, and then the left became woke, and then we're like, okay, let's say libertarians, independent. What I see in real life
Hmm.
is that even for the people that are very religious or very whatever other thing that I'm not, or
Hmm.
what I mean, like very opposite of whatever I am,
Hmm.
when they fall into the libertarianism of, no, I defend not just my right to be this way, but your
Hmm.
rights of my neighbors to be whatever way they want, we tend to be more close. We're closer politically, and we tend to be fine with each other's opinion much more than
Yeah.
the left and right, whatever position they are, but when they are authoritarians. And
Yeah.
that is the attack. Mainly, you see the attack in between left and right, the authoritarian left and the authoritarian right fighting over how they should be able to put stuff in schools, uh, prayers in schools, or drag queen shows in schools, depending on which agenda they have. But they
Hmm.
are trying to create a type of socialist. They want everybody to behave and believe and do the same thing they do. And we're more like,
I'm gonna
I'm totally fine with people believing and doing crazy
yeah.
shit on
I'm,
their own.
I'm gonna I'm gonna blatantly message here right at the end and say I am entirely for any normalization of queer people.
Of
So
what?
queer people,
Oh, queer people.
people of alternate sexualities or genders or whatever like that. I'm all into normalizing them so that we can overcome this association that has come out of defaming that drag queens are pedos and drug users and criminals and whatever else like that. It's like,
No, I don't think that is the generalization that is out there. I think we're experiencing probably predators abusing those moments of, like you said, normalizing queer and
yeah,
gender
I want to normalize queer. Yeah,
differences, and doing a little bit more than just showing those
yeah,
differences,
yeah.
you know. uh,
We all grew up with Silence of the Lambs, and that James Gum was transgender had nothing to do with the cruelty. You know, it was like weird.
well, that it's an interesting one, because I love to do that quote, like, would you fuck would you, like he does the I would fuck myself, and I love I think,
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah.
when I started
Silence
I was
of the
like,
Lambs.
shit, I'm
Wow.
gonna talk about fucking again.
Yeah, completely, completely.
Yeah, so I love that scene, by the way. But
Yeah.
yeah, that connection, I never actually I wasn't thinking of that. But what I think we are experiencing, for example, I think I shared with you, you might have not seen because I shared a bunch of things with you,
Hmm.
was for example, Flecka's talks. I love Flecka's interviewed in here. He is more on the right.
Okay. I
uh
didn't get the name Flaccus.
Flecka's, yeah, Flecka's
Fleckus.
talks is his podcast. So
Okay.
he's more involved in politics. He's much more right. He's on the religious right, let's say, on the
Hmm.
ones that probably want the prayers in schools by the public enforcement. But then they do a little bit of this searching in culture and releasing videos when they where they show that seems to have some type of grooming, which I've told you.
Grooming in this case defined as we're not talking about combing your dog or your hair. You're saying establishing a relationship with a minor for the intent of exploiting that relationship when they reach majority age for sexual purposes.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly. And for me, as a kid, like I'm probably with you on the, yes, normalizing gender, you know,
Hmm.
difference, and people have, because for me there's just one thing. It's like gender is more like of a fluid spectrum. So nobody's
Hmm.
like, it might have some 100% masculine males and some 100% feminine females, but those are the minorities, you know. By the normal distribution, we expect that other people are across the line, you know.
I've met 100% masculine males in gay bars.
Look, I have to say that they might define themselves. I have talked to guys that would like edgy homosexual performing
Sure.
in their private, you know, like
Hmm.
with other girl, but sometimes not even with men, but they have like dildos and they do anal penetration and stuff like that, and they swear like and get mad if you say that could not be, you know, the most masculine trait of a man to like things
Hmm.
that look like penises, you know. That's kind
Huh.
of gayish, let's say,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
homosexual.
I think nothing about being gay makes it less masculine.
Well,
Uh, I think those are independent. I think you can like anal
There
sex
are masculine
masculinely or
gay
femininely.
men. Yes, there are. I have had friends that were like very masculine men, and nobody could tell they are gay because they are very masculine in their way of talking and trading
Their
and
boyfriends could tell.
but for me it's like let me go back because now we were just degenerating on talking of the gays.
Yes.
But I think the idea is like for me is like not, I don't want to generalize to take those grooming which look kind of like a pedophilic, edgy pedophilic, let's say,
Mhm.
drag queen shows, burlesque shows to kids
Hmm.
in a sense that seems to be grooming, or for me as a mom it's just unnecessary. Of course my kids will have I'm not going to sterilize the environment and they will encounter different people sexualities. I tell my daughter that yeah, there are families with two moms, two dads, some many, could be more, could be a group of
Mhm.
mom and dads, like, but the part of sexualizing I'm very against, and I think they
Mhm.
are definitely exposing that there
How about
is this, probably the nasty loud minority that is even proud of being groomers. So it becomes like a problem, like a cultural problem, let's say.
yeah.
Something goes with
Okay.
the
So,
problem.
how do you feel about heterosexual displays of sexuality in front of children?
I'm not comfortable.
Okay. So, I remember going to the circus and being quite mm, moved and emotionally ambivalent about the really really sexy outfits on the females in the circus. Definitely aimed at children.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess there
Should we
are
avoid that?
places where they can do, they tend to do that. I don't know. I've been to like poor circus places and stuff like that, and Cirque du Soleil here in Canada, and sometimes it can be kind of a sex, I guess, but it's not suggestive. Nothing that you know
Hmm.
raise an alarm for me. I didn't have my
Okay.
daughter when I went to the Cirque du Soleil here, for example. But I guess if you look at some point, the girls are like almost just like a collar or like a mayo, one piece, very tight or ties.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Their
not
clothes are painted
still
on in just the right way.
sexualized the way that I've seen on those videos of Flecas where the drag queens have corsets and fishnets, and the
Yeah,
kids are putting money in their underwears or handling that money.
that's weird.
Yes, that's what we're talking about here. Like we
Yeah,
can actually
yeah.
bring
Strip
this
club?
up
That's
when
weird. Okay, burlesque? That's a little weird. And
the
anyway,
drag
I'm
hour
gonna start
reading.
another
Yes,
show. We're already over
because
time.
let's say here there is a lot of people that would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you against a drag queen, come and sit and read a book for the kids. It's like, no, I
Yeah,
have no problem with that.
good.
Okay, I think we're on the same page here. We have no problems with drag queens our reading,
Mhm.
as soon as not a sexual book, right? Because there are also books that apparently have been crossing this line as well,
Huh.
with way sexualized imagery and talk conversations. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would say the book question is independent of who's reading it. I should have the same standards.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but I'm definitely, like you said, the sexual can be a subtle line when you talk from people to people, from person to person. I would say I myself have my own sexy costumes and stuff that
Mhm.
I don't feel comfortable if my daughter saw me in any of them. And I don't dress like that. She
Mhm.
would probably just like, oh, mom, you look pretty. But
Mhm.
I still like, no, I think there's a time for that. And
After all, women's nipples aren't for children. Wait,
no, I'm totally for free the nipples. I
good.
think topless is totally fine. I've seen in Brazil people do topless on the beaches in Rio. You go to Copacabana, you're gonna see a bunch of girls with their beautiful nipples out there. Was really funny because mentioning talking about this, speaking of it, when we went to Rio first time, I think I was 8. My brother probably was like 5, 4,
Mhm.
and was the first time he sees a naked woman on the streets, in public, like, or
Mhm.
topless. So it was super funny because he just like points out, Mom, look at that girl. She lost her top on the waves. That was
Mhm.
his reaction to think that she
Sure.
lost.
Sure, why not?
And we're like, nah, that's totally fine. And yeah, I'm totally fine with that top
Oh,
nudity.
now if both of us wave, the broadcast ends. That's one of the AI little functions in StreamYard. So, at the end, let's make sure that
Oh
we
yeah, yeah.
we don't wave at the same
Can
time
I take a
unless we mean
break
to.
just to go to the toilet, and I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay,
Okay, so
that's fine. And
I'll
I will,
just mute here. I'll be right back.
okay. Uh, okay, so there's, I just released some videos today. Let me grab a shareable link. There's a link to a time lapse from last Wednesday, September 21st at UCLA that generated 8 total videos, 5 conversations. My goodness. There's 2 Easter egg videos in there for conversations that aren't widely published but are interesting from a behind the scenes perspective of how it goes. And the time lapse, it's at 100x, so it doesn't take long. Shows what 4 hours looks like at ridiculously high speed, and might give you an impression of how long is the waiting time between conversations on a moderately successful day in which we had 6 conversations. Anyway, um, there's that. There's also, let's see, a playlist. Let me grab that playlist and share it with people. Ding. And there's a playlist of all of the published videos that came out of last Wednesday. And we're back. And we're about to gone. Did I do you think that I understood your claims and your definitions well? Is there
I
anything
think
that you want
so.
to
I'm still with that question, the confidence, because I keep thinking that it's like my main fear of
Mhm.
having a super libertarian place is that definitely the war threat, the idea of gonna have to we're gonna have people trying to take over our place because they see it's a libertarian place. They're not organized. But I do think people are moved to defend their land quite a lot. So I don't think we would
Mhm.
have problems if we, like you said, if Putin decided to invade Canada. I think if people would not be uh, as much as coerced to join the war, or as much as they would like they probably would be as moved for their land, to protect their land, as much as the coercion of the government. Why not? Why not fight for your land? I don't see why people would prefer to just run away to as being a refugee to United States. Then I guess, I guess maybe because United States is very attractive. Then
Well,
maybe the Canadians would prefer run to United States than to fight.
I bet that happens a lot actually, because I'm thinking that Canadians and Americans have a relatively easy time immigrating from one place to the other.
Yeah.
Uh, Much more than other shithole countries because our system is racist or something like that. Uh, and obviously I put quotes around the shithole
Yeah.
countries. I'm making reference to Trump. Anyway, um, so thank you very much for this conversation. I very much enjoyed it, and we'll be having a lot more. I saw the list, and it's like yummy and juicy, and
Oh, yes.
we're gonna get into a whole bunch of those things. It's
We
gonna be
have a
fun.
bunch of notes here.
I stayed up way too late even thinking about thumbnails for all that list. It was great. Uh, I'm distracted and excited. So Fanny is going to be a regular for a while. Maybe we'll be doing Tuesdays at a
I
similar
think
time,
I think
but
he is.
there's no obligation.
No,
that
it's
we
not.
stay
It's
on a regular
usually
schedule.
Tuesday, Wednesday, but
Yeah,
we.
Wednesdays are usually my UCLA day with
Oh yeah,
Reed, so
so no,
but
it's
that won't be common. Although, uh, again, we're not nailed down to a particular day there, and if Reed
we're
changes his
gonna
mind,
try to
I'm just
come
going
every
with it.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a good list here of topics, and people can send ideas and suggestions if they
You
want
bet.
us to talk about anything.
And all of you out there,
Hopefully, we're like little clear.
to you. All of you out there are also welcome to come along and bring your claims to me, and I would love to have these kind of conversations with pretty much anybody who is willing to stay on topic and stay focused on the thing, and like we've done. Thank you very much, Fanny.
Thank
Now
you for
wave
having
so we can leave.
me.